Hello, in this video we're discussing Ashlee Simpson, federal number 54616-177. She's in FCI, Aliceville, Alabama. Her out date currently is August 17th, 2035. As you listen to her story and you listen to her mother speak about the situation that happened, you will see that she was not a drug dealer. She was a struggling addict that was taken advantage of. She didn't even have a vehicle. So please, she was sentenced to 262 months. There's a change.org petition in the description of the video. If you could go to the description, click that petition, please sign it for her, share it wherever you can possibly share it. Please get involved. Subscribe to the channel so as other people are being added and their stories are being told, you can get involved with those also. This is an incredible injustice, and we hope that we can make a difference. Thank you all, and God bless.
You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call. This call is from
Ashlee,
an inmate at a federal prison. This call is being recorded and is subject to monitoring. Hang up to decline the call or to accept. Dial 5 now. If you wish to...
Hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good. If you don't mind, if we could just get we are recording this for your video. If
Okay.
we could get a little background information from you. What is your full name?
Ashlee Elizabeth Simpson.
Okay, and what is your register number?
54616-177.
And the mailing address for the facility that you're in?
P.O. Box 4000, FCI, Aliceville, Alabama 35442.
And again, these are just questions to get a little information about yourself before we get into the actual situation. But do you have children?
Yes, I have a daughter.
How old is she?
She's 12.
Okay. And then prior to all of this, when you were younger, did you have any dreams or aspirations about something that you wanted to become or something that you wanted to do?
Yeah, I always wanted to be a teacher.
Okay, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that at all. So, what from that time until your current situation, where do you feel like things started to take a turn for the worst?
Okay, so I guess there's just several life situations that happened when I was younger that I probably didn't really deal with. I went through some childhood sexual abuse for the first time at the age of 3.
Oh, wow.
Again at the age of 11, and also at 13. And then I was actually raped by a jailer in County, Texas, at the age of 17.
Wow.
So that kind of puts you in the cycle of guilt and shame, and you just kind of want to escape. And so I started using drugs to self-medicate and fell into a deep cycle of addiction. And so that's kind of where I think just things went wrong. I just, instead of dealing with those terrible situations, I just kind of buried them and never gave myself time to grieve for the loss of my innocence. Wow.
Yeah, that's incredibly sad. I'm sorry. So when this addiction starts to set in, how long was it before that you were actually indicted? How long was it from the time you started using to the time that this indictment came?
Okay, so I actually had several, just through my cycle of addiction. So I started using, actually my stepmother was the first person who introduced me to drugs. So I had a summer visitation with my dad. She's the first person that that offered me drugs. And so it kind of went, she's the first person, somebody that you're supposed to trust, and introduces you to drugs. And so from that point forward, at a young age, that was probably 15 when that happened. So then I got to several little possession under a gram convictions. I got one in 2009, 2003, again in 2005, and then again in 2015, just possession under a gram charges. So I have never spent more than a year at a time in jail, ever.
And those possession... Oh, I'm sorry. Those possession cases, they were for your personal use, or was that something that you were selling?
Yes, personal use.
Okay.
Just possession under a gram. Those were all just personal use cases. So,
right.
So I just kind of, at that point during the early stages, well, I say early, but this was going on for years. You know, there was a period of sobriety. Of course, I left the state of Texas and went and got clean in the state of Georgia and ended up getting pregnant, and of course having my daughter in 2007. And for someone that suffers from addiction, I stayed clean until she was, you know, almost 3, and it's just like a ticking time bomb. I just felt like I was minutes away from the next time I was going to use, and unfortunately I fell into that. And so my mom picked up my daughter, and she was the only thing keeping me from just going all the way out, you know. And so
right.
she picked up my daughter, and so at that point I really didn't have a reason to be clean anymore. And so I went into this I don't know, the situation just kept getting worse and worse and worse. There's a series
This call is from a federal prison.
of traumas that happened back to back. In 2012, I had stopped on the side of the road to help this girl who'd been ejected from a vehicle, and she was in the fast lane of the highway. Her body was there, and I was trying to help her and call 911, and it was like early in the morning, like 3 o'clock in the morning. And anyways, in the process of helping her, this truck barreled over her body right in front of me.
Oh, wow.
And then after that, I was at a house. There's a home invasion, and this girl ends up getting shot right in front of me. And then I'm on the phone with my boyfriend like 6 months later, and he commits suicide. It's just like all of these traumas. Just like I felt like death was like pursuing me, and I was just escaping. And after a while, you know, the party had ended a long time ago with the drugs. I was using to forget, you know, these things that had just happened. So by 2014, of course, you know, a string of these bad relationships and a crowd of people that, you know, is not the best for you. My part is that I got in a relationship with someone who was involved in some things, and I introduced someone that I knew to them, and they continued on and their whatever they were pursuing that was not legal, and that's how I got brought into the situation.
So what was your actual indictment charge?
My actual charge is let me see, it's the US 21 846 and 841, conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute. Was
there an amount that was tied to that?
Well, okay, well, whenever I signed, no, not at first. It was just conspiracy. And when I was arrested, I got arrested in August of 2016, and they put me immediately in segregation, and they kept me there with no TV, no interaction with other people. I would go outside to wreck by myself. I had zero interaction with anybody, and I was kept in that small box. And thank God, because I found God there in a way that I've never experienced God before. When you have no outside distractions and you haven't gotten right with yourself in years and years, and all you have is the Bible, God shows you things. And however, I had a lack of understanding for how the federal system worked, and I didn't have anybody to talk to. I was given an attorney who after a couple months, I guess, who withdrew from my case because he all of a sudden got offered a job as a public defender, and it was a conflict of interest. Then I got another attorney, and basically that attorney told me, you know, if I didn't plead guilty in McBride's court, I was going to get a life sentence. And so no, there was no amount. Whenever I said there was a group of people that I had been associated with, and they went to trial, and they lost. 3 of those people ended up getting life sentences. They lost, and I was just scared because, when you get life in the feds, you get life in the feds, you die here. So
Right.
I didn't want that. And so there was the amount that I signed guilty to on my factual resume said 50 grams. So that's what I pled guilty to, was 50 grams of drugs, yeah.
Was there ever a discussion from the time you were indicted until prior to sentencing about how much time you were looking at or what they were thinking about?
The agreement was if I would plead guilty, that I could be moved into general population, that I would no longer be kept in a segregation cell, that I could go to church, that I could, basically I wasn't going to be segregated anymore, and that instead of my bracket being from 10 to life, it would drop down to 5 to 40. So, in my naive mind, I was thinking, 5 years. Okay, 5 years.
So, up until sentencing, was there ever a time where your attorney said, this is probably what you're going to get, or this is probably what it's looking like, or here's what the prosecutor's offering, or anything like that?
I did not sign a plea deal, so they weren't offering anything. I did tell my attorney at one point, because these people were talking about the sentencing guidelines, and I was like, I don't know what the sentencing guideline is, and so I asked my attorney, I was like, what is the sentencing guideline? I don't understand how this works. And so the day before I pled guilty, he gave me he came to see me in the jail, and he was telling me that
This call is from a federal prison.
he was telling me about the different people who had proffered against me, and he brought up that I had that there's a proffer from who is my boyfriend at the time, who was his ex-girlfriend, and he had continued a sexual relationship with this girl unbeknownst to myself. And I had never met her, been in the same room with her, did not know what she looked like, because he kept us separate. But apparently they had been talking on the phone, on the jail phone, and they had talked about an amount of drugs and possibly a gun, because that was in my criminal complaint. And so she got indicted, or brought a superseding indictment brought into the case based upon their recorded jail phone conversation. And she commenced to proffer and give all of this fictitious information, basically to save herself or reduce her sentence or whatever she thought she was going to do. And so it was basically my attorney's telling me all this information right here for the first time about how this girl that I don't know has put over 50 kilograms of drugs on me. And I was just shocked, because none of the other evidence or other people that had proffered, none of that added up to anywhere near that. The total amount of drugs in my PSI ended up being 52.95 kilograms, and she put 52.5 of those kilograms on me. So without her proffer, I'm 40 point, less than a half a kilogram of more ghost hearsay. So I did not understand how that could happen, and so my attorney basically is telling me, based upon those amount of drugs and my criminal history category, that my guideline range was 262 to 365. And I just started crying. And he said that if you plead guilty, some of this weight will come off. It won't be all this weight. Some of this weight will come off. And so still in my mind, I'm like, I understand how this can happen.
Right.
But so yes, that was the first conversation that I had, and then the very next morning, I believe I went to go plead guilty. So that's how that went.
Had you heard of McBride outside of your attorney?
I had actually heard of him several times, just Judge McBride. You just hear the war stories about him, just how strict he has always been, how the sentencing he hands out, and then I've witnessed it for myself here. There are people that have gotten conspiracy charges in other places and in states that get single-digit numbers all the time with similar possession charges. I think we're fixing to get cut off.
Yeah, are you able to call us back for a few more minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make another phone call. I have to wait 15 minutes, but I'll call back.
Okay, perfect. We'll be waiting for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Hello?
You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call. This call is from
Ashlee,
an inmate at a federal prison. This call is being recorded and is subject to monitoring. Hang up to decline the call or to accept. Dial 5 now. If you wish.
Hello. Hi, how you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good. So, we kind of left off where you were talking about the whole sentencing aspect. Did you have some more you wanted to add on to that?
I think, we were talking about the judge. We were talking about where we left off was, had I heard of Judge McBride before?
Right.
That's where we're at.
Right.
Right, okay. So, once I had pled guilty and was put into a population environment, everybody was kind of like, who's your judge? And McBride's like, oh, no, because I guess there were some people who were in O'Connor's court that had, all getting like 7 years, 10 years, 8-year sentences. And so it was just common knowledge that if you were in anybody's court, it would be better to be in O'Connor's. And then I get into this environment after the fact, of course, and I meet all these people from Missouri and Tennessee and Indiana and different places, and or even Dallas, or the Dallas region. So I guess that's still the Northern District, but just a different judge, maybe. I'm not sure. But they're all 11, 12 years, sentences that just seem, lower than anybody out of McBride's court. However, I will say that I think that in my case, he did stay in the guidelines. Actually, I got the bottom of the guideline. I feel like more of that a lot of it has to do with the whole system as a whole over there. The whole court between the probation, the prosecutor, what they will accept to increase drug weight.
Right.
It's the whole system over there. I feel like no matter what, they make sure that they give you the highest sentence possible, or they put you in the guidelines for the highest sentence possible.
And that's the part where we're concerned about with McBride. Not only is it the harsh sentences, but it's that if there's an argument made for the drug amount, then there's threats of you're going to lose your acceptance points.
Yes, that was the main thing that I talked about with my attorney. Before sentencing, can we please object to this amount? Because I signed a guilty plea for 50 grams, and then by the time that I'm sentenced, I'm in my PSR. It just says that I'm accountable for over 50 kilos. Where's the disconnect here?
Right.
So he said, I begged him, but please, can we object to this weight? Can we object to this weight amount? And he said that if he did that, I would lose my acceptance points, and then it would go back from the bracket would no longer be at 262 to 365. It would be 360 to life. And so I was back in the same boat that I started at. So yeah, it's devastating to think that you're pleading guilty and you have something in your mind of as to what may be an acceptable amount that you're pleading guilty to, and then it comes down to it, and they can say whatever they want to say and put it in your PSI, and then and drug addicts can say whatever they want to say against you to reduce their sentence, and they call it the gospel, and then you're in a situation where it's no longer 50 grams, it's 50 kilos, and if you say, hey, wait a minute, there's something wrong with that, that's not what I pled guilty to. Okay, now you're not accepting responsibility, so we're going to take those 3 points away from you.
Right, and that's our one of the issues that we're having. Even though you were sentenced within the guideline range, that shouldn't have been your guideline range. So,
Right.
In the end, take us back to the moment in court when you right before sentencing. What are you thinking? What's going through your mind? And then what happened once he read the sentence to you?
Okay, so like I said, I was naive when I walked through there. I had hope that there was no way I was going to get more than 10 years. There's just no way. It was emotional. I tried to hold it together. I walk in and there's 2 rows of friends and family that had showed up for my sentencing, and I listened to my mom testify about my childhood sexual abuse and sexual assault and the trauma of the 3 deaths I had witnessed, and that led to my mental health and ultimate self-medicating drug use. And then my attorney made a statement and spoke on my behalf. I was allowed to make a statement, and I spoke about how I had been lost, making bad choices, losing everything while chasing nothing, the realization that my life had not turned out at all the way that I had planned it to, and that it was easier to be a victim than a failure. I was begging the court to see through the bad choices I'd made and into the positive, productive person I have the potential to be. I poured out my soul while the judge was a picture of scholarly disinterest, shuffling through papers, sorting files, never actually looking at me. I felt defeated and shocked when he said 262 months. From that point, it's pretty much a blur. I didn't really hear anything he said. I don't remember anything really except for shuffling out in shackles from the courtroom and making eye contact with my mom and seeing the steady stream of tears that were just falling from her face. And I remember mouthing to her, I love you and I'm sorry. And I was able to hold it together until I walked out for her, but yeah, it was rough.
Absolutely. And since sentencing, what has it been like for family and visitation and just yourself? Like, what have you been up to do better and be better?
Okay. So at first,
This call is from a federal prison.
I was not. We had kept it a secret, like from my daughter, that I was even in jail until after I was sentenced. And then once I got sentenced and my mom broke the news to her, I got a letter from my daughter, and it was so sad, but it's just so sweet how kids just, the picture that they paint about things. She said, my world is dimmed without you. I feel like somebody cut me in half, kept one half, and took the other half and made meatloaf. And that is so sad, but so deep for at that time, a little person. And I just, since that time though, we have video visits and we talk all the time. I talk to her, and they come up here every 4 months. They come and visit me in February and June and on October. And aside from the family contact aspect, which I have great family support, and I arrived here at April of 2017. I've spent over 1,800 hours programming. I've taken adult continuing education programs, including creative writing, team building, conflict resolution, diversity and inclusion, habits of effective people, and leadership courses. I've completed Assert Yourself, women's relationships, and drug education programs. I have learned new hobbies such as crochet, drawing, beading, and billiards. I graduated from the cosmetology program on September 9th of 2019.
Wow.
A skill I'm using well now as I have a full-time job in the salon here.
Wow.
I currently teach the release preparation programs through the education department, including staying healthy, job readiness, budgeting, successful employment, housing and transportation, and self-esteem.
Wow.
Although my release date is not until 2035, I am teaching release preparation programs.
Right.
I also enrolled in a vocational training computer application course, which I'm about 20 hours from completion.
Wow.
I have also completed 7 of the 8 courses I need to get a theology diploma through Stanford University. I am one of 80 people out of about the 1,300 who were chosen to live in the honor dorm. I have never had an incident report or gotten into trouble. I am also an active member of the church here, a leader of the praise and worship team, and a part of the creative ministries program.
Wow. Wow. You know, our hope here, we're gonna have your change.org petition in the description of this video, and our hope here is that people will get to see who you are and understand that the sentence you received is not, it's not going to be helpful for rehabilitation. At the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about giving people the time to get their lives back together and then bring them back into society as a better person. And it definitely seems as though you've become that better person. So our goal is that we would like to, everybody that watches the video, to sign the petition to urge the president or anybody who has the president's ear for a sentence commutation to give you some sort of relief so you are able to get back out and be the mother that you want to be and live the life that you want to live. So we are incredibly grateful for the time that you've given us. And if there's anything else you want to say before we let you go, feel free to say that now. You're open to if there's anything else you want to add.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your time as well. I feel like maybe this is a divine appointment, and I would love for anyone who has suffered through addiction to know that you're only one circumstance away from being.
This call is from a federal prison.
From being in a position where you get slapped on the wrist and slapped on the wrist and slapped on the wrist, and then the next thing you know, you're devastated with an almost 22-year sentence of your life. It's not worth it. It is not worth it. But I have used my time to better myself, and maybe it did take the devastation of hearing those months, 262, to maintain sobriety, because this is, even though I'm in prison, trust and believe there are drugs here, and if you want to do them, you can. I have never failed a urine analysis, and they do give them out, but it is a choice. Sobriety is a choice, and I feel like I have changed to the point where it's really only been God. It has only been God, and I would love the opportunity to spend the best years of my life as the mother that I didn't have the chance to be, or I didn't take the time to be because I didn't. But now that I have dealt with the traumas and the devastations of life, I have decided to be the victor of my future and no longer a victim of my past. And I would love the opportunity to actually share this healed person with my family, because they haven't gotten that.
That's amazing.
And they deserve that.
That's amazing. Well, thank you again, and we will be in touch with your loved ones to do the interview with them, and then we will post this and pray that the outcome we desire comes about because of it.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much, and for the service you provide, and I will continue to keep you and your organization and my prayers for everyone who has requested and enlisted your help. You provide an amazing service, and I thank you.
Thank you. If you could just hold the line for 1 second. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm great. So this call, we're actually recording it for Ashlee's video, just to get a little background information about you. This video is in reference to Ashlee Simpson, federal number 54616-177. She received 262 months. What is your name?
My name is Elizabeth Stanley.
And what is your relationship to Ashlee?
Ashlee is my daughter.
Could you tell us a little bit about Ashlee as a child, what she was like?
Yes. When Ashlee was young, of course, she just had this great personality that was very contagious. She was funny and curious. She was one of those children that was always looking for an adventure. She was a very pretty little girl with long brown hair and big dark eyes. And I had actually survived cervical cancer and did not expect to have another child, but I did. Wow. So I felt that she was going to do amazing things in her life and that God had given us this incredible gift. She always wanted to be a teacher. She always wanted to do something like that. She loved kids. She even helped her little sister. We would have school class at least once a week. And so, unfortunately, Ashlee's dad struggled with addiction, so I was divorced right after Ashlee was born in 1984. And I remarried in 1989. My husband was from Texas, and so we then moved to Texas in 1990. And the childhood that Ashlee had was just really great. My parents were wonderful people. My current husband's parents were wonderful people. And it was really an idyllic childhood and a time of innocence until it just wasn't.
Where do you feel like things went wrong from that childhood until you felt like things were not as innocent as they used to be? Where do you feel like things got off track?
Well, as a parent who is divorced, you have to share your child and, try to co-parent the best that you can. But I was in Texas. My ex-husband was in Indiana. And so when Ashlee was about 10, I could tell things were changing. She came home one summer after visiting her dad, and I could tell, like only a mom can, that something is really wrong. So eventually it came out that while she was visiting at her dad's house in Indiana, a young boy whose mother lived with Ashlee's dad had violated her. She said she woke up, he was on top of her, and she really wouldn't talk about it any further. And to this day, I really don't know the extent of that violation. She said she told her dad and her brother, and her dad called her names. He told her she was a liar, and that if she wanted to remain at his house, she was going to have to take a lie detector test.
Oh, wow.
So she was 10 years old. So my ex-husband then called my parents, who also still lived in Indiana, and he just asked them to come and get Ashlee. Said she just didn't want to be there anymore. But once she got home and I figured out what was going on, I got Ashlee into counseling. I contacted Child Protection Services and my lawyer in Indiana. But nothing ever really happened. The incident happened in Indiana. We lived in Texas. I never even received a letter from CPS. Now, the judge did order counseling between Ashlee and her dad, but that never really happened. Ashlee refused to visit with her dad, and he did not push that issue.
Wow.
So during this time, I knew this was a very precarious situation. A young girl without a father for a hero, in my opinion, is just a prescription for disaster.
Absolutely.
And statistically, they are at risk for so many negative choices that's going to impact them for the rest of their lives. So I felt like I knew what I was up against, but I guess I really didn't. So around 14, Ashlee started becoming distant, but she was doing well in school. She was involved in theater and music and her youth group at church, and I was just hoping that this distance was normal for a teenage girl and her mother. However, at the advice of Ashlee's counselor and at Ashlee's desire to give her dad another chance, she wanted to go visit him in Indiana. He had a new girlfriend, and Ashlee wanted to try and fix that relationship with him. So after her visit and she came home, things became so unstable with her. She was angry, she was defiant, she was distant, and for the next 3 years, it was a constant battle of the wills for us. She would sneak out at night, she wouldn't come home, she was losing weight,
I thought she had an eating disorder. My husband and I, we took her vehicle, we took her door off her room, and I even listened in on phone calls trying to figure out what in the world was going on. I didn't know if she was doing drugs. If she was, I wanted to know who she was getting them from. I searched her room and her belongings when she wasn't around, and I really started thinking I was dealing with a mental health issue and pushing for a psych evaluation. So anyway, things would be okay, and then they wouldn't. So she's 17 years old. I've still got one child at home. My mother was living with us on hospice. And Ashlee, behavior had become so erratic, I took her to the doctor, and I had them do a tox screen. And she was positive for meth. I begged her to get help. The laws, however, unbeknownst to me, who've been in the legal field for years, I didn't realize the laws don't allow you to make a 17-year-old get help. They don't allow a parent to be able to do that. So the doctor said if she didn't stop using these drugs, we were going to bury her because the levels were so high.
Wow.
The counselor suggested we use a tough love approach, so my husband and I put her clothes all together in trash bags. We put them on the front porch, and we gave her an ultimatum, get help or get out. Well, that was the day I lost my daughter. She left, and I've only seen glimpses of her really over the next decade. We were ill-equipped to become between this love affair she had with methamphetamine. A part of me died that day just trying to stand on my faith that God would save her, but in the physical sense, for me, she was gone. I lost her so very long ago to this addiction. This was the girl who was taking dual credit classes in high school before that was even a thing. The girl who made the front page of the paper and best picture of 2002 because she went to prom and arrived on a John Deere tractor. Things just became so unstable that eventually we charged her with unauthorized use of a motor vehicle because that would force her into a safe P program in the state of Texas. This is a lockdown rehab facility through the Department of Corrections. My husband and I drove 3 hours one way every weekend to visit her and support her through her family group sessions. It was at this period of time that I realized her dad's girlfriend had introduced her to meth when she was 14. We continued group counseling for over a year, but when she was released, she returned to her addiction, and she was ultimately sent to the county jail to finish her time. And there she was molested again by a jailer.
Wow.
That also made news. Now, after that release, she was in the wind, and we saw her sporadically over the next 5 years, not knowing if she's alive or if she's dead. In 2006, she became pregnant. She came home eventually and had Bella. She stayed with us for 18 months. She was sober. She was clean. She had a job as a legal assistant. She bought a house, and then she moved out. But within 4 months, she had relapsed. Bella came to live with us, and Ashlee knew it was the best for Bella. I remember begging her again to get help. She held Bella in her arms as she was sleeping, and she looked at me and said, "Mom, I'm so sorry, but I can't do this. Please take care of her. I know you will. I'm so sorry that I am so selfish, but I can't stop using, Mom. I'm so sorry. Please never let her forget how much I love you, and I love her. I just can't stop. I have to use to stop from being sick." She held me close, and she said, "Goodbye, Mom. I love you. You won't hear from me because I know how hard that's going to be for both of us, but I will check in." So once again, she's in the wind. Our communication was non-existent. And about once or twice a year, I would hear from her, and I would occasionally get to see her. I worried every day I was going to get a call she had been found dead. Finally, one morning in August of 2016, about 5 a.m., I received a call from a federal marshal. He said, "I am sorry to call so early," but before he could finish, I said, "Is she dead? Is my daughter dead? Please, what is going on?" He said, "No, she is, however, in federal custody. She has become involved with some really bad people." He told me that many times these young women get involved with these men only because they provide dope and protection. And once they have them, they can't get out. I felt like I was drowning, and, how could this be? What was she charged with? I knew my daughter would never hurt anyone except herself because she's a drug addict. She's not a violent person. They said the charge was conspiracy to distribute meth. What did that even mean? so that's when it first, came clear to me that life was changing very dramatically.
When you first talked to her after she was indicted, was there a discussion about what she did, or what was her involvement in this?
Yes. I begged her, please, what is going on? She said, Mom, I don't even understand everything that I'm being charged with at this time. She said, all I know is that conspiracy means that another drug addict she'd never met gave sworn testimony talking about the drugs this group of men were moving and implicating Ashlee in the process. Somehow they concluded she'd participated in moving almost 60 kilograms of dope. Wow. That's like $1 million worth of dope, and my daughter didn't even have a vehicle. I mean, I had no idea what they were talking about, and neither did she. She did not understand how all of that was coming about the way that it did. She did have in her possession, I believe, under an ounce, I think. Maybe, less than that. Her original indictment was, I think, I can't remember whether it was 50 grams or I can't remember the exact original indictment, but it changed. It changed, and it went up to these 60 kilograms. I couldn't comprehend the gravity of that situation until, based on that weight, the lawyer told me that our daughter was looking at 22 to 40 years in federal prison.
Wow.
If she disputed the weight, her good points were going to be reduced, and the range could go even higher. He told me that Judge McBride was the judge, and he always sentenced on the high end of the calculations. I begged Ashlee to give them any information she had to help. She said she had no information. She said, I can't make up information like some of these other people do. I cannot do that. And she said, everyone that I know is already in custody.
Wow.
So the lawyer then told us that we possibly had a chance to prevail in a motion for downward departure because there were so many things Ashlee had been through in the last decade that I wasn't even really aware of. She'd been assaulted on multiple occasions. She'd witnessed at least one murder, and she had cooperated in that murder investigation. People were shooting at each other, and it ended up with a young girl losing her life, shot by that girl's own friends in an exchange of fire. Wow. Now, I know there are things I don't even know, and I've come to realize that a mother does not have to know everything. But as far as the sentencing goes, the marshal in charge of the pre-sentence investigation said he'd never seen so much positive information received about a defendant. She had over 25 letters of support. I put together a binder showing her awards and report cards and the positive activities she'd achieved as a young adult. I had 8 people with me in the courtroom. I took the witness stand explaining how difficult the addiction is, going from wanting to try the drugs to then choosing to use those drugs, and then having no control or choice because the addict needs the drug almost as they need the air that they breathe. They're going to do anything for that drug. Ashlee did not want to be an addict any more than I wanted her to be an addict, but my words were to no avail. Judge McBride did tell her that her record, which were all possession charges of the lowest level, and which I might add were consistent with an addict's own personal sustenance, he told her she did not have a violent record. He knew she was not a big-time drug dealer. That's in the record. But neither her lawyer or her mother had persuaded him to rule in favor of a downward departure. That is at his complete judicial discretion. He sentenced her to 262 months in prison, which was the lowest end of the calculation based on the amount of weight. We all remained stoic, and as Ashlee was led away, I said, Ashlee, I love you. I love you, and I've got you. And it wasn't until later when my husband and I were just holding on to each other, sobbing, that the words felt like our family had been dealt basically a death sentence. It actually felt like somebody died. Now, I've been told by other people that the women charged out of the Northern District are referred to as the 177 girls throughout the BOP. That number refers to the district, and hardly any other districts in the country even utilize this conspiracy charge. And the 177 girls are known to be the women with the highest sentences for their roles out of Judge McBride's court. I had hoped and prayed that she would get a 10-year sentence at the most. So We were broken. She did not get an enhancement for a leadership role, but she did not get credit for a minor role due to the weight. Now, I don't know about most people, but if you research or know anything about the drug world, the women are not in charge or control.
Absolutely. And the things you've said, we've definitely found to be true. The individuals that we have talked to from Judge McBride's court, although they have received sentence within the guideline range was inaccurate because of the amount of drugs that was said that their involvement was said to have had. And if there was a challenge to that amount, then the acceptance points were taken, and then they would receive more time. So it was a lose-lose situation, and your daughter is definitely one of the individuals that received that, and for that we are incredibly sorry. What has it been like since then for Bella and her visitation-wise, being able to talk to each other, stuff like that?
So, since her sentencing, we've really had to navigate a journey that at times has just left us scared. You know, we are a very strong family. My husband and I, Bella's father, my daughter Trista, we've all become stronger than we thought possible. And we had to actually tell Bella, who was 9 at the time. Bella had no idea where her mom was. About a year prior to this, before Ashlee was arrested, we were just explaining to her that, you know, your mom, we had always told her mom had been sick and that's why she couldn't come. So we explained addiction to her in the easiest terms that we could. But now we had to tell her that her mother was going to be going to prison for 22 years.
Wow.
And we hadn't even told her she was in jail because we didn't want to share any information with her about that until we knew for sure what was going to happen. And that was a really hard day. We wanted to be careful because the stigma that comes with a person in jail is that they are a bad person. And if a child thinks their parent is bad, they feel a part of them is bad.
Mm.
So, you know, we just had to do the best we could. We explained to her that addiction sometimes takes a person's ability to do the next right thing and to become focused only on the need for their drug. And many times they find themselves involved in doing things against the law just to maintain their access to the drug that controls them. We know what we know to be true. Her mom did not want to be an addict any more than we did. But these choices now had a full-blown impact. And we are not going to be broken or defined. We were sad, but we had to fight to be stronger in spite of it. So Ashlee and I took the position that God saved her life. This was not how we thought it was going to look, but we had to make the best of this situation. And Ashlee told me once, Mom, I feel safer in here than I have in the world for years. It's going to be okay. So Ashlee is housed in the Aliceville, Alabama facility, which has only one of the 2 honors dorms in the entire federal women's system. She is in the honors dorm, and she's not been in any trouble. She's on the praise and worship team. She assists with the Christmas and Easter programs. Her music, her faith, and her commitment to stay sober is what controls her thoughts and behaviors today. She's taken every class she can be involved in and that she has access to. She takes theology classes, and she's completed the cosmetology school. I think she's programmed over 1,800 hours. We are able to talk to her weekly, and twice a month we have video calls, and we visit every 4 months. Because it's so far away, it's kind of cost prohibitive to do it any more than that. So that's kind of our new normal for now. I did get a call from her last night. All the Bureau of Prisons are on lockdown, so they had to move them from the honors dorm. I can only assume the honors dorm must not be able to be, like they probably can't have meals there and everything else. So lockdown means you have to be in one place is, I think, how that works.
Right.
So, they are in lockdown, and that is where she is, but she says she feels safe and that they're all taking every precaution they can. And all I can say for sure from that facility's point of view, I believe the warden and everybody there is doing everything they can to prevent these women from getting this horrific virus.
Yeah, we are definitely praying for them going through this too. You know, the purpose of this video is, in the description of the video, there's a petition for Ashlee to receive some sort of relief from this sentence. A sentence commutation from President Trump, from other people who have the ability to hear her story and understand that, yes, Ashlee had some involvement, but it wasn't to the extent of the other individuals that were involved. And for the most part, this was to supply a drug addiction. Like you said, she didn't even have a vehicle, and that
No.
doesn't fit the description of somebody that was selling 60 kilos of methamphetamines.
Yeah, she was not profiting by any stretch of the imagination.
Right. And what that means is that, Ashlee, somebody's seen her as somebody that they could take advantage of, and they did. And, 262 months is just, it's not a reasonable amount of time, especially considering the fact that the goal is for rehabilitation, for her to return as a mother, as a stronger and better woman, as a productive member of society. So in the description of the video is a change.org petition that we would ask that everybody would get involved, that you would hear this story and that you would understand that this could have been your daughter. This could have been anybody that you've known that struggled with addiction or had any of those issues. And we just want to give Ashlee the opportunity to have a life again. Is there anything that you would like to say in closing to the people that we're asking to get involved?
I pray every day for another miracle. I know that God saved her life, and that was the first one, but I pray somehow that something can change in the bureaucracy to allow her to come home instead of spending 2 decades of our lives in the BOP. The challenges my granddaughter faces based on her mother's incarceration are not things I think anyone thinks about. She is a perfectionist, almost to her detriment. The fact that her mother is in prison makes her feel like she is living for 2 people in freedom. And maybe, just maybe, if she does everything right, it will be good enough and her mom can come home. Her mom's never going to see her cheer at a ball game. She's never going to see her perform on stage. She's never going to see her first date, her prom, her graduation, her first drive in a car. So Bella really now, too, has become a victim. And how will it be for her in the long run not having a present relationship with her mother? I know her mother's choices are the reasons, but if people could really understand, addiction is a disease, and the person is still a human being who has journeyed through more than most of us could ever imagine. Ashlee wrote me recently about her addiction, and she said, "It is a prison I trapped myself inside of, the walls of guilt and the bars of shame. I have felt that gaping distance that you place between yourself and everything that matters, and the helplessness you feel when you try to look across it. But you're so far away you can't even see your way out anymore. You do not even recognize yourself. My heart is broken, Mom. I do not know how you have survived the years I was lost in addiction. You are the strongest woman I know, and I want to say thank you for never giving up, for always having faith, for maintaining hope against all odds, for loving me in spite of myself, for always having my back, and most of all for my daughter, and all the ways you have compensated for the countless ways in which I have failed. I love you more than I have ever been able to effectively show and communicate to you, but I hope you know." I do know that today, and there are so many things I wish I had done different. I was ill-equipped for this disease. I believe most addiction is caused by underlying mental health issues, and helping an addict become a productive member of society, that should be the goal, not incarceration for decades. The crime she really should have been charged with was possession of what she had, which I believe was less than an ounce, not anything remotely close to 60 kilograms. If that were the case, I was told her sentence would have been 5 to 10. My daughter is a drug addict. She is not a drug dealer. She has the support of our family. She always has, and she always will. But today, she is serving a sentence in excess of what people convicted of killing another human being are serving. I know my family's not alone, and I know we're just one of thousands of stories. I will be 61 years old this year, and none of us are promised tomorrow. So for me, this sentence may be a life sentence. I may never see my daughter free, and I know other parents feel the same way. With a nation as intelligent as ours, I can only hope that someday someone will take the lead and start recognizing that treating addiction and all the underlying components that go with it should be our goal. I pray for clemency for my daughter based on the fact she, like so many others, are salvageable human beings, and how in the world does it make any sense to keep non-violent criminals locked up for decades? The only previous record she has is possession of the least amount. No violent activity, no charge like that whatsoever. I know that we all serve a bigger God than any challenge we face.
Absolutely.
And I know He hears my prayers. And I pray that today someone in Washington, D.C. can take the lead and vet these families, vet the individual cases, let some of these nonviolent criminals have clemency. They need to have another chance. I know not everyone's going to agree with that, but it only takes one person to start to make a difference, one voice. I pray, whoever you are, that you hear me. I am the average American. I am not rich. I am not poor. I am a grandparent raising a grandchild. I trust and revere this judicial system. I trust my elected and appointed officials. I am just one. But together we can make a change. So won't you please stand with me and be courageous and proactive and take a step toward change, a step to a better tomorrow where change and action can make a profound difference in the future of those who have been forgotten and discarded. Good people who've made mistakes, who've paid the price society demands, yet needs our voices to be heard in the Capitol for fair sentencing, and allow Lady Justice to continue to stand with the scales evenly balanced and represented by all who are brought before her. I am one. Please come with me and let us make a change together. Whatever that looks like, I am one, but let us become many.
Beth, we want to thank you for your time and being vulnerable and honest throughout this process. We know it's been incredibly tough, and our hope is that we will reach somebody that has the ability to talk to the president, to make change, and to release Beth along with others. Release Ashlee. Release Ashlee along with others and give them the opportunity to be the person that they've become. So again, thank you, and we are absolutely going to do our best to share this with the world.
Thank you so much.
I just want to thank everybody for listening to Ashlee and her mother tell their story. Again, I believe that this is another situation where Ashlee was struggling with addiction. Ashlee was not a big-time drug dealer who this sentence was meant for. I just pray that everybody would get involved as much as you possibly can. There's a change.org petition in the description of the video. Please sign it. Please share the video. Please subscribe so as more stories are shared, we can all get involved. I know that together we can make a difference. Bella, her daughter, needs her. She deserves a second chance at freedom. Her family needs her. Please, please do your part. We thank you all, and God bless.